Right, what do you make of this? Explain to us in a little bit more detail what it is that they're intending or suggesting might be an option.
Yeah, I think they're suggesting it, as you say, about the over 50s returning, to incentivise them, they think, to return to work. And also they're talking about people with disabilities actually being able to keep some of their benefits, or all of their benefits, and their wages if they return to work up to a year for both the over 50s and the disability scheme.
So what do you think of it? I'm sort of thinking at it from a social point of view. There could be all sorts of repercussions and resentments in the office.
I think there will be. There'll be arguments between the young and the older, thinking you've got a house, I haven't, how do I get onto that ladder? But then also there will be with the over 50s who've been in work all that time and say, well, why am I not getting any benefit? So there are those kinds of issues. And also, what will be the administrative costs for all this? Have they thought that out?
Do you know what I do think, though, where I can see this being beneficial, and of course something that might one day benefit me. I'm a very long way from being 50 yet, Helen, this year. But one of the things that I did think it could benefit would be those women of my sort of age, my demographic. I've got loads of mates like this who gave up paid work to work at home and raise the children. The children that get older, they go to university, they're sort of A-levels age. And the mums go, I'd quite like to go back to work, and anything that will incentivise them, because often you lack confidence as well at that age to go back into the workplace. From that point of view, it's got to be a good idea.
Well, perhaps there are elements there, but there are lots and lots of reasons why people don't go back to work. We've seen a huge rise throughout COVID of people being off sick, and so actually that's probably the biggest element. So it's not just about people needing to be financially incentivised. Actually, people want to be happy at work. We've got a huge mental health crisis in this country, so perhaps some money would be better spent actually supporting people with mental health issues, getting them happier and actually wanting to go back to work. And if they're happier at work, then everyone will be more productive.
So in your mind, then, it's just not going to be a good use of resources. But then also, similarly, if you are going back into the workplace and you haven't been working for many years, the chances of you walking into like a six-figure salary job are pretty remote. There may not be that many people that would even qualify, because the tax threshold perhaps that you would have to earn, because a lot of people might go back part-time, maybe if you've not worked for years. Maybe it just is not, it's not going to stack up anyway. It's not going to be many people be eligible for it.
No, and I think that's where some of the complications will arise, because at what point will you be allowed to do it for? How long will you be allowed to have this allowance for? Will you have to pay it back if you then only do a year and then go off work? Or what about the people who, think that's a really good idea, I'm going to stop work for 6 months and then I'll return and then I'll get that incentivised. There will be ways of gaming the system that they'll have to look at.
It's a very good headline grabber, though, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We're talking about it. And I think also from a politics point of view, as we know, as I said there in the introduction, a lot of Conservative voters are of a more a sort of more classical vintage, shall we say? Should we put it like that? The elderly population. And they will probably go, that's a lovely thing for me, and I'm going to vote for you for that reason.
I don't know, I think the government are so unpopular at the moment that it might just take a little bit more than a scheme that seems to be thought of written on the back of a postage stamp.
Yeah.
So I think we need to see a lot more detail. I think it's just being thrown out there as headlines to see and test the water, probably.